Hello there. We're going to look at WSET Level 3 today. Multiple choice only is what we're going to focus on today. I did do a few of these a year ago, but I'm always asked what might I get asked in the exam, and it doesn't hurt to have a few more questions out there. So I've been through the WSET Level 3 book and come up with the types of questions that you might expect to get. Now, I will be doing a video very soon around the short answer questions element of the exam, and I have done a video on the tasting element of the exam, which you can see just up there now. So if you're interested in that, links to that particular one down below, as well as some links to some useful wine books that I use as well that may come in handy for you. If you haven't joined me before, thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more wine content. And of course, for everybody, please like this video. It helps the channel grow and it gives me lots of inspiration to keep going on. Now, before I get into WSET Level 3 exams, questions, a little bit of information. Because the exam is split into different parts and there are different elements, ideally you still want to be aiming to get around 43 out of 50 correct on the multiple choice. That's going to put you in the distinction range for grading when it comes to the marking of the exam. And before we get onto the questions, I just want to show you how the questions are broken down with regards to the learning outcomes of the exam. So learning outcome number 1 is all about identifying the principal natural and human factors in the vineyard in the production of still wines and how they influence style quality. Learnings 2, 3 and 4 are all quite similar. Learning outcome 2 is about the principal wine producing regions of the world and the still wines that they produce. And again, it's all about the natural and human factors in the vineyard creating those wines. Learning outcome number 3 is all about the sparkling wines from the principal wine regions of the world. Learning outcome number 4 is all about the fortified wines from around the world, and again talks about the natural and human factors in the vineyard. And then number 5 is all about demonstrating the ability to provide information and advice to customers. So it is quite a varied course. Again, it's a lot more in depth. The Level 3 book, a lot more information to take in. You are expected to know it back to front, up, down, sideways before you get into the exam. But let's take a look at some questions that you might get asked, or at least give you an idea about the types of questions that come up as part of this particular exam. Okay, let's take a look at number 1 then, which is all about an Italian wine production method. So passito wines are A, made from dried grapes, B, fortified wines, C, made from grapes affected by noble rot, or D, always undergo must enrichment. There is a pretty hefty section on Italy in the WSET Level 3 book, as you will expect, and therefore there are lots of questions about Italy in the exam. And there is actually a section on one of the pages specifically talking about a particular process where grapes are dried and how they contribute to wines such as Recioto della Valpolicella, I said that right, but it does say that is the passito method is about dried grapes. So the correct answer here is A. Now we're going to move on to a tricky question about a Bordeaux wine classification. So within the context of Bordeaux, what is unique about the classification system in Saint-Emilion? Is it A, there is a different ranking for red wine and white wine? Is it B, unlike the Medoc, it does not permit promotion and demotion? Is it C, it forms part of the appellation law? Or is it D, it applies to the vineyard and not the chateau? Quite a tricky question, this one. And I recall from Level 3 that we spent quite a bit of time on one of my days in the classroom learning about the various classifications, particularly in Bordeaux. It can be a little bit complex. So this is going to come down to what you can recall from the book, and in this case the answer is C, in that Saint-Emilion it forms part of the appellation law. Now we're going to move from Bordeaux and head a little further south into Spain. The grapes used to make cava can come from A, Penedès only, B, for a number of delimited regions throughout Spain, C, anywhere in Spain, or D, Catalonia only. I think this is quite a tricky question, although on the face of it, it may look straightforward. And that's because much of the cava production in Spain is to be found in Catalonia. So naturally, you may think to veer that way in terms of your answer. But the reality is that in Spain, the cava that is produced can come from anywhere in Spain and is popular the country-wide. So in this case, the answer is C, it's anywhere in Spain. Next, we're going to talk about factors in the vineyard. So, which soil type has the poorest drainage? Is it A, clay, B, sand, D, chalk, or D, gravel? Again, on the face of it, this might seem like a relatively straightforward question, but we're talking about you doing this in an examination environment. For me, that always makes it harder. It's only easy if you know it. But you will start to think about where the drainage of water, what's less porous, what's it going to be unable to drain through. And I think because of that, it only really leaves you with one possible option, and that's A, it is clay. Now we're crossing over to the other side of the world and New Zealand with a specific question around one of their regions. Martinborough in New Zealand is famous for its A, Chardonnay, B, Sauvignon Blanc, C, Cabernet Sauvignon, or D, Pinot Noir. I think the trick with this particular question is that New Zealand is famous for making lots of styles of wine, particularly Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir. So you may want to discount the other two immediately, but of course there are regions in New Zealand that make these wines as well. Now, the other thing that I would point out here is we're starting to talk about some of the more specific regions that you wouldn't have covered under WSET at level 2, say. So whilst you might have done places like Central Otago and Marlborough for New Zealand at level 2, you really start to go across the breadth and width of the country at level 3. And Martinborough is famous for its Pinot Noir. So in this case, it's D. Now we're going to go back over to Spain and a question about one of their black grapes. Another name for the grape variety Tempranillo in Spain is A, Melon de Bourgogne, B, Pinot Noir, C, Breton, or D, Sensibel. What I think is interesting about this question is, this for me is all about what you've learnt in the book. Certainly in the UK, we refer to Tempranillo as Tempranillo. We don't refer to it as anything else, but of course the book does give you the insight. And in this case, the answer is D, it's Sensibel. Now we're going to go across the Atlantic over to Canada with a question about some of the wines that they make. So Canada is well known for which of the following styles? Is it A, light off-dry refreshing Chardonnays, B, luscious ice wines, C, big hearty Cabernet Sauvignons, or D, port-style wines? I think in the case of this question, it's about thinking about the geography of Canada. It's particularly northerly latitude, which might get you starting to think about some of the wines that would be created, and especially, you know, what are they famous for? What would they be able to excel at that other countries can't? And if you think about that, what can they excel at that other countries can't? There's only really, for me, one answer that jumps out there, particularly in some of those frozen tundras of Canada. And of course, those are luscious ice wines. Grapes like Vidal contribute to ice wines in Canada. They are freezing on the vine themselves. They're then picked and crushed to produce that really sweet nectar, absolutely delicious stuff. But in this case, the answer is B, it's luscious ice wine. Okay, next, a question about grapes contributing to a particular style of wine. Haslivelu and Ferment are two grape varieties which make what? Is it A, Savinier, B, Fendant, C, Sauterne, or D, Tokaj? Now the thing that you need to think about first on this one is where are Haslivelu and Ferment grown, because getting that right is going to narrow down your answer. They are popularly grown in Hungary, so that's going to start getting you thinking about Hungarian wine. And one in this particular list sticks out, and that was D, Tokaj, is a Hungarian wine made with Haslivelu and Ferment. Okay, next we're going to be talking about a wine characteristic from the perspective of the look of wine. So an orange-brown rim bordered the core of a ruby red wine would be a sign of what? Is it youthfulness, fortification, malolactic fermentation, or maturity? What's interesting about this one, and if you've watched my video on the look of wine, you'll know that wines, red wines in particular, lose pigmentation as they get older. And this wine that I've got here is very young, it's quite purple in colour, but as this one starts to age, it will start to lose some pigmentation, and that's particularly noticeable around the rim, where things will go slightly ruby at the core and orangey brown around the rim. So in this case, the answer is D, it's a sign of maturity. Okay, next we're going to take a look at region, sub-region classification. Which of the following is the correct hierarchy, broadest to narrowest? For the following areas: 1. Bourgogne Rouge, 2. Chambertin AC, 3. Côte de Nuits Village AC, or 4, Gevrey-Chambertin AC. So what they're wanting you to do here is put this from the broadest to the narrowest, and that could be 2134, 1342, 4231 or 1324. Getting the regions and the sub-regions and the villages correct is a really key component at level 3, and definitely one of the harder ones that you have to cover off as well. I recall getting a question where I needed to put particular villages in geographical order from north to south. And the only way you can really do that is by knowing the book inside out. So this all comes down to your study ability and ensuring that you take appropriate time to study. Now looking at these, and I'll go back to the card quickly, the broadest one here is of course Bourgogne Rouge, because that's red Burgundy, that's clearly the broadest area. So that only leaves B and D as possible options, and you can see in B and D that only leaves us with Côte de Nuit Village as the second broadest on here. So it comes down to whether the narrowest is Chambertin or Gevrey-Chambertin, and in this case the answer is actually B. It goes 1342. Now we're going to go back to Spain. I've got a question for you about Ribera del Duero. So which of the following is an important factor in Ribera del Duero? Is it the maritime influence, the early morning autumn mists, the high altitude, or the cold air descending from the Pyrenees? What's tricky potentially about this question is you need to think about where Ribera del Duero is in Spain before you can start to discount some of the incorrect answers. Once you've been able to do that, there are a couple of things that drop off immediately. Ribera del Duero is not near the coast, so it doesn't have a maritime climate, and it's not particularly near the Pyrenees, so it can't be that one either. So it comes down to whether it's high altitude or early morning autumn mists. It's high altitude, so the correct answer is C. There we are then, a few more questions for you at level 3. It's left me very dry mouthed. If you're looking for more from the WSET at level 3, drop me a line. I can always make more videos about the types of questions you get. Look out for that video coming soon on the short answer questions, and I'll see you again soon as well. Cheers.